What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the When Life Gives You Lemons podcast. This is your host, Stephen Ashworth. Super glad to have you guys here with us, listening wherever you're at. And we're welcomed by a very special guest today, Mason, an Omaha community member and also an avid businessman who has a lot of life experience as well as, some background in the athletics field. And so, Mason, thanks for joining us today.
You got it. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Mason, give the listeners a little bit of a background. Where'd you grow up? Kind of what's your story? And I mentioned that you're in athletics. What was kind of your high school like and all those types of things?
Yeah. I grew up in Minnesota, smaller town, played, every sport underneath the radar, and then ended up playing basketball and golf.
Okay.
And kind of settled in there, really, really wanted to play basketball. And then we were just talking about last night, and you got a knee injury. When I was a junior, I tore my ACL, tore my meniscus.
Dang.
And 20 plus years ago, the recoveries aren't as fast as they are now. So that kind of eliminated that. And then I pursued golf and ended up playing golf at Drake University in Des Moines. So I did that for 4 years. Loved golf, played it really hardcore for 4 years, and then kind of had that decision at the end of the senior year about where do you want to go. And in that sport, it's do you want to play professionally through the mini tours with the ultimate goal of getting to the PGA Tour like you see on television, or do you want to ditch that and take advantage of your academic background from a great university like there was at Drake, and I chose the latter by far, which was the right decision for me and what I wanted to do. I wanted to lean on the books a little bit more than the golf clubs.
Yeah. I can imagine. Obviously, I like to play golf outside of basketball, but I understand how hard that game is, both physically and mentally.
Yes.
And so, from your years at Drake, do you have a core memory of your golf experience that you could kind of share with me? Like, man, this was one of the best memories of my golf career at Drake.
I guess one of the athletes at Drake that is extremely well known in the golf industry is Zach Johnson.
Yeah.
So, Zach was a British Open champion. He was a Masters champion. And when I was coming in as a freshman, he had just left. But he spent a bunch of time as he was playing the mini tours coming back with us, practicing and playing and stuff like that. To this day, just a really great role model. A good friend, and so everybody always asks me, "Did you play with Zach? Did you play with Zach?" Yeah. He's as good as he back then as he is today in terms of being a person, which I think is the most important thing.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's cool. I know Zach. Watch golf and understand. I actually didn't know that he went to Drake.
Yeah.
And so I can imagine what were the facilities like at Drake compared to, like, I'm seeing on social media now all the Alabama, Vanderbilt, all these golf facilities that make me wish I was playing golf at those schools.
Oh man.
What'd you guys have at Drake?
Yeah, not those.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I think no matter what the sport is, I think all these universities need to really try and stay ahead of the game, right? Like, you've seen this even at Creighton. Like, your guys' locker room at CHI just seems to be amazing, and the facilities here are great, and the Mac Center. Same thing at Drake. It looks a lot different now than it did then. But we had a great city behind us. We had a lot of private clubs in Des Moines that were like our second home. So we didn't exactly have one facility, but we had about 4 or 5, which you would think, I don't know if I like that or not, but at the end of the day, you got to see 4 or 5 different golf courses, practice at 4 or 5 different places. And you never had a membership that was getting tired of you.
True.
You weren't just there 24/7.
Yeah.
Because like you in the gym and you guys having your walk-arounds all day, every day, we live and die on the practice range, on the putting green, on the golf course. So, we're there for hours and hours and hours. And so we didn't wear out a welcome anywhere, which was nice.
That is nice.
Yeah.
A personal question. If I ever am in Des Moines, where should I go play?
I was a member of Wakanda Club. which is kind of a little bit more towards downtown Des Moines. Also a big fan of Glen Oaks on the west side of Des Moines.
Okay.
So either one of those two would be good spots.
Okay, good. I'll keep that in mind. When you mentioned earlier how you had an option to possibly, chase the professional career with golf, and you decided to lean on your academic, prowess from Drake. What kind of went into that decision? And then also, if you can enlighten us on what did you take away from golf or basketball, right? But this podcast is all about when life maybe gave you lemons, and you mentioned your ACL, right, and MCL. Like, I think that is a prime example of when it wasn't necessarily what you would have wanted at all, but at the same time, it's probably an experience in your life that now looking at where you're at, you wouldn't have traded it, to go a different route because of where you're at. Sure. And, I don't want to speak for you, but could you just share with us kind of that background of that decision and what you've learned from all of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything happens for a reason, for sure. And I think that really helped me in high school decide what I wanted to do, because it was pretty quick with the knee injury. I would play a position like you where I was quick and I was agile and things like that, and then I took a full step backwards with the knee, right? And so it wasn't anything like I was. So it made the decision easy about which one of those sports that I wanted to concentrate on, which I think was a blessing. And then throughout school, we had a lot of really great players, alumni players that were playing on the mini tours. And so, you got to see the challenges that were presented for those guys and how good they were. So at the end of my senior year, honestly, the decision wasn't hard. Okay. I kind of looked at it because I see, it's, do you want to, live and die over a 3-footer and eat McDonald's and possibly be living on the back of your car? Or, do you want to put those books to work and go be passionate about something in business? And I said, I'll choose that way every day. Love golf, play golf, but professionally, I'm a business person. I'm not necessarily an athlete anymore. And it was the best decision I ever made, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, best decision.
I can imagine. And, I obviously understand it because I'm still, playing as an athlete. I understand those pressures. But, there's just something different about golf, too, and the pressure to where it's you don't have teammates. You don't have other people you can rely on.
Yeah, we also didn't have 17,000 people, booing us when we were trying to shoot a free throw. So it's a little bit different. But, I encourage all, guys on our team when they were really on the fence of what they wanted to do. I was a big proponent of you have to do it. You absolutely have to do it, because I know in 5 years, 10 years, they're going to look back and they're going to wish they wanted to do it. And at that point, it's too late.
Yeah.
Right. And so in this game, the young people are hitting it so far, and they're so athletic, and that if you wait 10 years to try and get into it, you're not, it's going to be really, really hard. So a couple of my teammates did. They gave it the full go, and it was wonderful watching them. And some of them decided to go the way I went, and I think we all settle in on we like our decisions, and only one person's got a green jacket, and that's Zach Johnson on our team.
Yeah. And so after your golf career, what was the first job you had, or first role outside of golf?
Yeah, so when I decided that I wasn't going to play, I love golf, love it. And I had a business administration background at Drake and also an insurance major. And I'd really looked at going into the insurance business because I was extremely interested about that. Yeah. But I just all of a sudden kind of got this thing that I wanted to stay somehow in golf. But I wanted to stay in the business side of golf, not to be like a professional at your club or something like that. Yeah. So, I thought I had the background, right? I was a college golfer. I had a really great education. I had some experience working in some golf retail. And then I got out into the real world and quickly learned, oh my gosh, this isn't going to be as easy as I thought, right? And at that time, it was an industry that was dominated by tenure. And it was just when people left companies, they went to go to another golf company. And people wouldn't hire brand new people or young people into the industry because it was kind of like an older man's industry. Yeah. And I was like, dang, what am I going to do? Like, I was exhausting all my contacts, doing all that. And what it came down to was I just couldn't get in front of anybody because the resume didn't have sales experience. And I couldn't figure out how I was supposed to get sales experience if they won't give me a chance. Right? Like, it's
like a chicken before the egg type of situation.
Yeah. So, you know, I looked at a couple of different places, and honestly, they weren't going to be, I was going to take the job in the golf industry just to take it, and I didn't want to settle on something. So I kind of decided, okay, where are we going? This isn't working right now. So what's the problem? And the problem was the resume. And so I decided to, an alumni had a business. I went and did an outside sales job at his business in a non-glory position, coiled steel spring manufacturer.
Wow.
So they manufacture garage door springs, agricultural springs, and I was supposed to sell these things.
Okay.
Right? No background in that field at all.
Yeah.
But, you know, I said, you know what, just do it. Just, if you can be successful here, you know, stick with it, build this thing out, and then good stuff will come. And so I was there for about a year and a half. And then my resume got picked up, and I got on a short list, went through an interview process, and here I am.
Yeah. That's amazing. It's interesting because I was actually, funny enough, my parents are in town for the New Year and for the game last night. And I was talking to my dad a little bit about this of just, you know, professional aspirations and then what comes next for, you know, me. And in a lot of ways, like similar to what you're saying, I think I want to stay in basketball in some way, but maybe not necessarily as a coach or a trainer or things like that, but just also the business side of basketball. And, you know, like you also kind of balance that of you understand the game and you know people, you have connections. But he said almost the identical thing that you just said. He's like, whatever you decide after basketball, it's not going to be as easy as you think. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And for you, when was that? When did you really realize that? And then how did you, obviously you mentioned how you pivoted, you went into, you know, find any sales job, but from where you're at now, what have you kind of seen through that journey?
You know, I guess from where I sit now, I've always, from that moment, I had one gentleman who took a chance on me, and he'd say, "Kid, just don't disappoint me." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, just give me the chance," right? Yeah. And so, to this day, like I owe this gentleman everything, and I've always said, like, I always want to pay it forward, and I will always give young people a chance, especially those people that have the backgrounds and the drive and the work ethic, and the only thing they don't have is the experience. Yeah. And so it's afforded me to create some programs and create some departments within our sales team, and so that we can use those young people and give them a stepping stone to get into the industry, which I think is amazing because it's something that, you know, these people weren't afforded 20 years ago. I wasn't afforded 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's super cool that you're willing to do that. And also, I feel like that takes a personality of someone who's good with people and understands, you know, that you can bet on someone, and it doesn't just have to be this, you know, do they check this box, check this box, check this box, as opposed to, you know what, I see that they have a drive, they can have potential, they have a passion for this, and if they chase that, they could do special things. And so why don't you give our listeners just a little bit of a background of what is your role right now with Nike, and how did you get there? Where was maybe your even first golf job? And just tell us a little bit about that story.
So my first golf job was right here in Omaha. Okay. Believe it or not. So I went to Drake, got a job in Omaha, and I was a sales rep for Cleveland Golf. Okay. And my territory were the two Dakotas and Nebraska. So young kid, 23-ish, 24 years old, you know, just driving around his car, you know, just happy on life, right? Just loving life. So I was here for a couple of years, and then I moved to the East Coast. So I moved to Boston in a couple of different roles with Dunlop Sports, which is the parent company for Cleveland Golf and Trixon. As a regional manager in the Northeast, and then moved to the West Coast. So I lived in Southern California for about 11 or 12 years, and then just relocated my family back to Omaha about a year and a half ago.
Okay, and was the West Coast move with Dunlop as well?
It was, yeah. Okay. So I had kind of transitioned throughout the country, and then once I moved to California, then I've got into my current role, which is the Vice President of Sales. Mm-hmm. And then we have, within my division, we've got 3 brands that we represent. So we do Cleveland Golf and Trixon, 2 golf specific hard good companies or club companies. And then we just acquired the distribution of Nike Golf in the U.S., which has been really exciting about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Was that actually after Tiger decided to leave? Was that did that take place, or where?
We acquired it about 60 days before that happened.
Really?
Yeah. So that was it was an interesting speed bump that we had.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was right before we did it in about August, and then obviously right now is when Tiger did it. On the first of the year. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to pry too much into that story, but is there any kind of background details that you could give, some of our listeners about just that experience because I mean, we talk about challenges and how to overcome them. And I would say that for Nike Golf, losing a figure like Tiger is never something, like you mentioned, a speed bump, right? Yeah. It's never something you would hope for. And so how did that change the business and the market for Nike Golf? And then what are you guys doing now to pivot kind of around that and make changes?
Yeah. Nike and Tiger had a wonderful run, right? I mean, they did some things together that you could argue may never be done again. And then when they had their split, which was nice to watch, the two, it was a very amicable thing. Like, we've done this, we've done a lot of things, created a lot of great memories, and wishing each other the best, whenever the futures hold. For Nike, what was nice about them is they had a stable of athletes that Tiger was certainly one of those major athletes. But Scotty Scheffler, you're a golfer, right? #1 golfer in the world. So they had just the laundry list, the Rory McIlroys.
Yeah.
The list can just go on and on and on.
Hometown hero Tony Finau. I got to give him a shout out.
Shout out to Tony Finau for sure. So they did a great job kind of backing it up and kind of seeing that there was going to be this transition within the game and within the players there, and really doing their due diligence to make sure that the swoosh was on, the top players in the world for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to, Nike and golf, there's obviously a lot of brands that I feel like when you're talking about your experience trying to get into the golf world with somewhat of just like major players in the golf world going from brand to brand to brand, and there's somewhat of this hierarchy in golf to where is it difficult for an athletic company to compete with some of the name brands like Titleist, and now you have Peter Millar's and you have some of these other athletic wear that are coming into the golf space? Or how does Nike navigate just the different brands in golf to stay at the top? Because I feel like Nike, in any sport they're in, they're trying to be the top.
Yeah, for sure. The swoosh is all about the athlete, and what we deem as an athlete is really anybody that plays the game. And so some people don't think of themselves as an athlete, but if you're going to go put yourself on the first tee, we believe that you're a Nike athlete. And when we believe when there's an athlete playing a sport, we believe athletes wear Nike. And so what we see is a lot of parallels between people like you playing basketball, and obviously Creighton's a Nike school, right? And it makes a really natural transition for you when you go into the golf course to throw on that swoosh polo, or throw on your Dunks or your J's or whatever you're going to throw on, because it becomes more of a lifestyle thing. And so it's transitional whether you're going in your training gear or whether you're going to go play golf. It really is an athlete's brand. That separates ourselves. Like, we're not confused on that, right? Yeah. And we're very solid in that. So resting on our laurels of just, making clothes, making the best gear for athletes and some of the best athletes in the world for sure.
Yeah. And I feel like, in sport, culture is a word that comes, around a lot, whether, wins or losses, it's a culture building win, or, hey, we've got to make sure our culture stays, true through this loss. And I'm picking up on something I feel like is a little interesting. I'm saying Nike a lot. You're saying the swoosh. And what is that culture about, when people are wearing the swoosh? And what does that mean, to you and to just the culture of Nike or the swoosh?
Yeah, I mean, it's you've got Nikes on. I've got Nikes on. It's an awesome brand, right?
Yeah.
It's a fun brand. It definitely is a culture. It presents a lot of fashion to it, but it presents some of the most cutting edge materials and technology and things like that in all of it. And so I just like to say it because you don't even have to write any letters underneath it, and it's very few and far between in terms of logos in this world that you don't have to mention a little bit about what the company is. I mean, you put the swoosh on, and unless you've been hibernating for the last 50 years, you're going to know what it is, and that's a really powerful thing. But I think a lot of that's attributed to the marketing presence of Nike. If you turn on the television and you watch some people in our sport on the PGA Tour, I mean, all day, every day, when you see it, you're going to see the swoosh, and so it's just. It's a fun company to work for. They always keep you on your toes, but you always know that they're going to be on the top of their game, bringing you some of the best gear that you can bring to golfers across the country.
Yeah, that's awesome. With your role in sales and the vice president of sales at Nike for golf specifically.
Yeah, at Dunlop Sports, and one of the companies that we have is Nike. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So what is your day-to-day like when it comes to, you're obviously, I would say, focused on the sales, and when that comes, are you in, large works with the marketing teams at each of the, companies under Dunlop, or what is your kind of day-to-day like, in sales?
Yeah, so I'm responsible for all the sales in the U.S. market.
Okay.
To golf-specific retailers. So that would be anybody from like a Dick's Sporting Goods, or like a Golf Galaxy, or your Omaha Country Club, or anything in between of those. Anywhere you can play golf or buy golf stuff. And we have a sales force of about 130 total people in the department. And so, I think the day-to-day is more so of just kind of guiding the ship and then letting everyone do kind of their part and getting us to the finish line, and just kind of put some more forward thought into where we need to be tomorrow instead of today. And making sure that we're prepared for all the opportunities that the industry presents, for whatever that would be. We've got 3 different brands, so all of those opportunities look different, which keeps you on your toes, because it's not just getting complacent with one thing or one channel, which is kind of which is a fun aspect to have a part of the day-to-day job.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about challenges you might face in this role today, but I also was curious along challenges. Something that comes to my mind is just, with Dunlop Sports being the parent company to all of this, are there ever situations where the success of one of your brands comes at the hindrance of another one, and how do you kind of manage that, if so?
It's an excellent question, because we have some brands out there that in some way, shape, or form compete against each other.
Okay.
So we have a couple of golf brands, Cleveland and Trixon, for instance, where a golfer could choose either one of those two. Either one makes the same type of, it makes a driver, it makes a fairway wood, an iron, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are competitors, but we've found ways to make sure that the brands, although they operate in the same backyard as each other, that they're very focused on the consumer or the golfer that they're going after.
Okay.
So that's a way that we try and differentiate it, because otherwise, yeah, to your point, if you're just making a golf club for every single person underneath the sun, you might as well just have one of those brands instead of 2 of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense. And I can also, just by thinking of whether it's Nike or Cleveland, I do feel like there's a specific demographic for each of those type of consumers, which makes sense of to why you guys could be focused on, okay, this is geared towards them, this is geared towards them.
Yeah.
And when it comes to, golf apparel, I feel like there's this new wave of the balance between performance and also like, the swag and the, just the newness of, I personally have a pair of the, Travis Scott One Low golf shoes, right? Like,
I'm sure you do. Yeah.
One of the, things to where the performance side of it might not be the ultimate to where I'm going to go wear it if I was on the PGA Tour, but it also kind of has that swagger of golf. And I feel like there's also some of those brands that are bringing that in. So how are you guys, navigating this kind of newness?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, right? Like, even if you aren't a golfer, you can still bring your style to the golf course. COVID certainly helped out the golf business and the golf industry. Golf is a huge boom, as you can imagine when you go and try and play, and all the tee times seem to be filled now. Everybody got a chance to play golf during COVID. So whether you're good, whether you're bad, whatever, it's been fun to watch a lot of the evolution of the fashion business come into golf. And in a lot of areas, it's become a little bit more relaxed than just thinking like, you always have to have the collared shirt on, and it's always got to be buttoned to the top, and it's always got to be tucked in. And a lot of, I would say, a lot of social media has helped create different channels and things like that where they've encouraged it to be a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah.
I'm sure the last time you play golf, you probably had music on the golf course, right? Yeah, exactly. A lot of us can't live without it, and there's a few clubs that you still can't do it at, but the vast majority, like that was a big breakthrough. And a lot of prints are really the focus right now in the apparel industry, right? Like you see, it's just not your boring, black or white or whatever.
Yeah.
So, with Nike, staying in that fashion platform is obviously very important, but really taking advantage of the materials and the technology that we have from all the different sports that we're in and all the different gear that we provide, and really be, like I said, again, that athletic brand. And so when you're out there for 4 or 5 or 6 hours, however long it takes you to play golf, like you're not feeling like you got this heavy shirt on that you're sweating through and all that stuff. So it's a lot of performance goes into the golf clothing.
Yeah, I have to ask about, I'm sure you watched the match with Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy versus Bryson and Brooks.
Yeah.
There was some buzz about what Scotty was wearing towards the end of it with some like makeshift vest, hoodie, rain thing. Didn't seem very, like, I was curious about like what is it like for a professional golfer and the freedom they have to maybe even be in the design process or communication process of trying out new gear / how much new gear do you give them to say, hey, will you test this for us, give us feedback, or is that all kind of hush hush? You just tell us. I'm curious.
Yeah. So a good plug though, if you really watched that event, what you noticed was 3 out of the 4 gentlemen that were playing were all wearing Nike, right? So that was fun. Each one of those guys and gals out on their respective tours, they all have their own unique style, right? Like you mentioned Tony before, right? Like he loves to wear just the low cut J's, right? And you mentioned performance. He wears them on the PGA Tour day in and day out.
Yep.
And then you have some people, maybe like a Rory McIlroy, who on his golf shoes, he likes a little bit more traditional golf shoe, a little bit more of the standard spike. And then you get into some of the other guys, and they might like more of like a hybrid. And so it's not a total flat shoe like we were talking about with Tony, but it also isn't to the level of like a Rory. So, and then they all can take their own little nuances, and for sure, like we'll put clothing on their back and see how they like it, and because we need it to perform. Right?
Yeah.
And you have to have athletes test things to see how it's going to perform out there, and test it only like they can do. So they all have their own style, and they all have what they like. And some of them go as crazy as Scotty did with that vest. It was a little bit out there, may or may not be coming. We'll see. But but everything, sometimes it looks a little different, just to give them a little bit more edge, so that they might not have a little bit of the feel on the downswing or wherever, just so the gear doesn't get in the way with them, but it works with them.
Yeah. When it comes to just this golf space, and I feel like this podcast has turned into a golf podcast, which I'm totally happy about. But I do have one more thing, and then I want to ask a few more kind of business related and also educational things. When it comes to influencers in golf space, which I feel like through YouTube, and Bryson was a huge proponent of it, and COVID, I think, as well.
Definitely.
Where could people see Nike going with that influencer space, and is that something that you guys have focused on or kind of steered away towards based on demographics like we've mentioned before, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, so let the marketing team do what the marketing team does best, right? And that's find some of the best athletes in the world to wear Nike clothing. this certainly looks different now. And, you know, some people, it used to be maybe performance based, like you would look at people who could get on television on the PGA Tour as maybe the people that you're looking to have wear your gear. And now the whole social media aspect, you know, when you have podcasts and things like that where there's millions of followers, you know, you can make arguments that placement of logos is equally important on podcasts as it could be on, you know, television on a Sunday of a PGA Tour event.
Yeah.
So I just think, you know, every industry has changed, but certainly within golf and trying to analyze you know, who and where, and it might not be your top level golfer, right?
Yeah.
It could be just the guy who has the crazy following that you want to get in front of. So everything's changed for sure. And as you know, with all the NIL stuff and all that, you know, like I feel like everything is changing and evolving quickly.
Yeah, no doubt. It sounds like you're giving me some hope that our podcast could maybe be sponsored by Nike Golf here soon.
Hey, there we go. I love it.
But you know, you mentioned everything has changed, and you know, you were a college athlete a few years ago, and what would you know, if you've taken all of the things that you've learned from your career, you know, and being able to apply it in the college sport today, what were some things that you would maybe try and do more of or focus on more if you were playing college golf today?
You know, I feel like so this is a long time ago. College was a long time ago. Let's just get that straight. Right now, it's 20 plus years ago. You know, we were still in the mindset like, yes, we are golfers, we are athletes, but we're also not like the basketball team or the volleyball team in the way, you know, with that mentality of, you know, 12 months out of the year, always in the gym, doing all that stuff. But, you know, we had started, you know, doing the program of in the gym, doing yoga, doing all that stuff. And I think in the early days, we probably didn't take it as seriously as we should have. And when you watch, call them kids now, but when you watch the guys and the gals now in college, I mean, just, and you guys are the same way. It's just from your sport, then to the gym, then to your recovery and all that stuff. And a lot of people sometimes look at golf and they're like, it's not real, it's not, you don't have to be athletic to play golf. Mm-hmm. Well, it takes a lot out of you if you want to play at your highest level, right? Yeah. And so I would have probably adapted more quickly to some of those other things to try and make us probably better on the course and more prepared instead of just beating balls all day and thinking that was the way to get better. Yeah.
I could definitely see how. I feel like even in my career, throughout, you know, college basketball, it's been, you know, this is my 5th year now, and I feel like every year I've learned something new. And you mentioned about how, you know, just beating balls, you know, just hitting the same shot over and over and over, and there's just different ways to practice. And I feel like there's a lot of things that people really don't understand that go into performing, you know, at a high level.
Yeah, amen.
And you know, I like to think about how oftentimes, like, people will criticize what you're doing out there to try to perform at a higher level, but at the same time, it's like, why would I ever take criticism from someone that isn't in it?
Exactly.
You know, and so when it comes to, you know, performing at a high level on the golf course or performing at a high level in your day-to-day role now, what similarities do you see between that, and how has golf or other athletic opportunities prepared you for your career after sport?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, to your point about maybe trying some crazy stuff to get better or constantly challenge yourself in athletics, I think you also have to do that, you know, on my side of this things in business, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you know, the way that you did business 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 days ago, is always changing in going different ways and, you know, adapting and thinking about stuff that's going to help you in, like I mentioned, tomorrow instead of today, and just trying some different things, knowing that not everything's going to work.
Yeah.
But also being able to like say, okay, I'm going to go into this, and if I see some areas where it is working, then I've got a plan to put some gas on that fire.
Yeah.
Right? And so you don't all of a sudden go, oh my gosh, I got to the result and I love it. And then you sit there and go, what am I going to do next? But you've got a really good plan. And then you also are ready just to, you know, fold the cards if you don't see results. And then go and try something different. But just, you know, sitting there and thinking that today's going to get us to where we want to get to tomorrow is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt. One of my favorite quotes actually is, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Insanity.
The definition of insanity.
Yeah.
And, I like the fact that I feel like after sport, I'll be able to apply a lot of the life lessons that I've learned into my career, whatever it may be. But if you were to have advice for, you look at myself even, wanting to get into business or sports and business after my basketball career, what would you give, as a words of advice or caution even to someone like me?
Yeah, I don't think you should. I don't think you should be cautious in anything, right? Like, just figure out where your passion's at and go full bore at it, just like you do with basketball. Mm-hmm. That's a really good question. I think I love the chance to hire college athletes because I know the grind that they go through in college. And I'm just talking about the athletic side of things, let alone you actually have to go to school.
Yeah.
Right? Like, people forget about that. Like, they think that you just, you go play golf every day and you never have to go to a class, or you go play basketball every day. So the fact that student athletes, especially ones like you with your academics, that looking at your bio, that seems to be really strong in what you believe in, performing in the classroom. Like, when you put those two things together, in my world, like, I think that's the recipe for success. You might not have the experience yet, but and you're a driven person and you're getting all those things done and you're finding ways to get it done. It's the same thing when you go out into the world, right? Like, you don't know everything. And the good ones are the ones that don't have a playbook in front of them. They're just going to figure out how to get it done, right? Like, you don't have a timeout to call. You got 12 seconds left. You're going to figure out what play to do or what's going to work or how you're going to finish out the game. And that's what I really love about college student athletes, for sure, and taking advantage in the hiring process.
I love that. I've some people have asked me before, what's kind of been the hardest thing about being an athlete, and I think that, like, early on, it was really being able to, like, understand time management and the fact that you only have 24 hours in a day. Yeah. And I think that athletics has done, wonders for me personally, in my personal life, to be able to understand, like this summer I became a father for the first time.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it. And it just changes you, right, as a person.
Yes.
And they ask, how's that been trying to manage both, your responsibilities on the court, you have a team and academics and then your family life. And something that kind of hit me this summer was that in life, I believe we don't have priorities, we have priority. Like, priority is a singular word in my, definition and understanding of the word. And so what that meant to me was that wherever I was, I needed to be present. Like, if I was at the gym, I needed to be fully focused on basketball and my time there. And then if it was, up in study hall after practice, I was there. And then as soon as that was done, when I got home, I was at home. I wasn't worried about my classwork as much anymore or any of those things, just trying to make sure that I was singularly focused. And so I'm sure you can see that in your career of, how that's transpired for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I love that. I've got 2 young kids as well. And so the days of just, being on the road and traveling around the country and things like that, they still happen. But then you also, just like you, but then you also, want to be very present for your kids. And so I find myself, and I tell my wife a lot, is, I take the first flight out that I can get, and I'll take the last flight home that I can get, so I can milk every last minute when I'm on the road. Yeah. And so that I'm not staying overnight one more night that I necessarily don't have to. Yeah. Right. But I also, once I'm out there, like, I'm focused. I'm really got my nose down. I'm gonna do my job. I'm gonna try and be 100% focused from sun up till sundown. A lot of times, a lot later in the evening than that. Yeah. But then when I come home, like, I get to see my kids. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that I can take them to school in the morning sometimes and be around them, be with them, because I know that when I go back on the road, like, it's, you be focused again. So I think you're setting yourself up for a lot of success.
I appreciate that. If there's anybody out there listening today that would want to get in touch with you or even want an opportunity to possibly work with you, how could they reach out to you? Where could they find you, whether it be on social media or any emails that you can maybe share with somebody listening?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to share those for sure. My email is my entire name, so Mason Prange at clevelandgolf.com. We've got a bunch of opportunities on our website, which is Dunlop Sports. But yeah, I love the city of Omaha. The people here are so great that anything I can do, whether it's in Omaha or outside there, I'm happy to help.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the time. It's been great to get to know you a little bit better, and I'm definitely looking forward to maybe a little spring golf together.
You got it.
All right.
We're in. OCC.
Okay. All right. You just told me the day. I'll tell Mac we need to change practice or whatever, but I'll be there. And thanks, everybody, for listening today. This was our time to get to know Mason a little bit better, and this is your podcast, When Life Gives You Lemons. Thanks for listening.